Hi, welcome back to Box of Lights. I'm Ricky Royal, and this is The Old King's Crown, a tale of royalty, rebels, and ruses. Old King's Crown is from independent publisher Eerie Idol Games, based in Scotland here in the UK, designed by Pablo Clark, developed by Andrew McKelvey. And I've got a co-design credit here because I helped work on the solo rules. And that's exactly what we're going to show you today. There's 4 factions in the game: nobility, uprising, clans, and gathering. Each one has its own unique way of playing, so this is an asymmetric game. We're going to play as nobility, and in the solo game you play against an automated opponent called the Simulacrum, to which you can assign any one of the other factions. It doesn't alter the way they play. The Sim has its own way of playing. I'll remove the clans and the gathering and put all their components back in the box. I'll set up, and then you can join me back at the table as we demonstrate the solo game. I've almost finished setting up. We'll just do the last little bit here now. You can see actually for a solo game, the footprint's quite big, but it's beautiful to look at. Pablo's artwork is fantastic, and we'll look at that a little more closely as we get into gameplay. One thing to mention, this is still a prototype. I know it doesn't look like it. This is very close. This is a pre-production press release. But Pablo and myself are still working, tweaking, refining those solo rules, and a little bit. The multiplayer is pretty much there. I think there's still a few little tweaks going on, but I'm going to present the game to you as it is today. We are beginning of October. The game is launching on crowdfunding towards the end of October. But like I say, I want to show you the solo rules and give you an impression of exactly how this game is going to play. If anything changes, it will be very small tweaks that you'll hardly notice. Right, let's get rid of some of these cards. We're playing as the nobility, and as it goes, although we've chosen the uprising faction for the Sim, it doesn't need the deck. So each faction has its own deck with its own set of artwork. Okay, this is, like I say, it's incomplete, so some of these cards don't even have their final artwork yet, but aren't they great? Pablo, you've done such a great job, and there's going to be unique artwork too. So although these cards all have the same piece of art, yeah, Pablo, you've got some work to do there, fella, because we need some more pictures. So that's the uprising. We've got clans. We're going to put these cards back in the box. So the idea of the game is that the old king is dead. The empire has a power vacuum. There are 4 heirs to the throne, all vying to take that crown. And the aim of the game is to win the most influence. It's a race to 20 influence, and the game will end at the end of a year. So the game is played in years. Each phase is a season of the year. So we're going to run through spring, summer, autumn, winter, end of the year, check for victory. If anyone's hit 20, then whoever has the most influence will win the game. And influence is won primarily by winning clashes, and I'm going to show you how this works. But it's a trick-taking game, basically. So you're going to have a hand of cards from your deck, and you're going to be trying to win tricks to gain influence. And we'll see exactly how this plays out shortly. There's also, as you might guess, lots of ways to influence the result of tricks. Who's placed the highest card can change and be altered by all sorts of crazy effects. Now this is the Kingdom card deck. We can pick up these Kingdom cards down here at the Great Road. These Kingdom cards are going to be pulling off some of those tricks. A lot of them have season timers, so you can use them at different parts of the year. But as I say, there's all sorts of fun to be had in influencing the outcome of those tricks. So for setup, we're just going to draw 20 of these cards. The rest are going to go back in the box. And the reason being is that there is a chance that you'll cycle through this deck. So Kingdom cards that get passed over may come back to the top of the deck at some point during the game. It depends how long the game lasts. Alright, so we're going to grab 20 of these cards and place them down here at the Great Road. We can remove the reference cards we don't need. We'll keep the one for our faction. But we do need our deck. And before we shuffle this up, there's a few cards we need to grab. We need to grab our heir, and you'll notice there's a trait on each of these cards. Okay, these traits identify what type of card it is. So this is our heir, and this is our ruse. We're going to take these cards because they're going to start in our hand. Okay, we'll come back to those in a bit. We also need our myth card. We'll come back to that in a second. The rest we're going to shuffle up to create a draw pile. Okay, so draw pile, 2 cards in our hand. Okay, now different factions have different myths, and the ability to have just one myth. Different factions may have various numbers of myths, and in fact, the sim also has 2 myth cards. Myth cards begin the game at your site of power. Every faction has a site of power, so we'll remove the sites of power for the clans and the gathering. They're not in the game. The sites of power are up here. So our queen long ago goes at our site of power, the mantle. And the Sims myth cards, they've got 2. We're going to shuffle these to somehow randomize them and keep them face down. And they're going to go here at the Uprising's site of power. Remember, they're just using a placeholder faction, whichever faction you choose to represent the sim at their site of power. These are particularly high valued cards that can come into our deck. So it's a way of kind of building your deck up. So yeah, it's a trick-taking game with a kind of deck building mechanism. They just kind of slot in the back here. So there's a way to improve your deck. For the sim, there's a card here called the Rider, which drives the sim's activation of their site of power and acquisition of their myth cards. Likewise, there's another card here called the Speaker that's only for the sim. So we'll place this to the left of the court. We'll come to that when we get there, but it's a way to also gain influence outside of clashes. We'll look at that as we get there. All right, there's the Sims draw deck. I'm going to give that a bit of a shuffle too. They also have an heir card, just one, so we've set that out and put it aside. Okay. Another thing to add, we're not introducing them in this playthrough, but there's a whole bunch of mod cards. So I'm playing the game on standard difficulty right now. There's a beginner game, there's a standard game, there's an expert game, but there's also some mods, and each mod changes the rules of the game slightly for the sim, okay, for the solo game. And each of these mods, they're double-sided because they're kind of complementary or opposite effects. Okay. So Bloody Campaign, for example, and Sever the Head here. They have special instructions. Like I say, they alter the game. Now, if they have a red dot on them, they're called, this is called heat. And if they have and they kind of heat the game up, they make it harder. And a blue dot, if it makes the game slightly easier. So you can really customize with these mods, and you can put none or as many of these mods into the game as you wish to customize how difficult or how easy you want the game, or indeed to alter the sim's behavior. And there is in the back of the sim solo book a set of what we call archetypes, predefined setups of mods for, like this Kappa here, Industrial Revolution, Deep Grey and Mother, that give you a predefined set of mods that change the sim's behavior. Additionally, whether you're playing on beginner, standard or expert, the sim will have a different number of companies. Companies will be adding strength to cards played into a trick. We'll come to that when we learn how to resolve clashes. But on beginner level, the sim will start with 1 company. On expert level, they'll have 5. And in the standard game that we're playing today, just 3 companies. And as I say, we won't be using any mods today. All right, but do think about it. So play your first game on standard, that's the recommendation, learn the rules, be prepared to lose, and then switch down to make the game as easy as possible. Use the Kappa archetype, add some blue dotted mods. Make the game easier. As you start to win, you can start adding heat back into the game until you'll become an expert with lots of different red mods, which our playtesters are doing right now. Right, we've almost finished setting up, but there's one other change. The sim comes with another deck of cards. These are fog cards. You can tell by the back of the card, all right, in fact, the face, they look different. But these are fog cards. Now, if you're playing on beginner, you're going to add 1 fog card. If you're playing on expert, you're going to add 5, and if you're playing on standard, 3 fog cards to the Sims deck. All right, so the number of fog cards you add is equal to the number of companies they start with. So we're going to shuffle these in. You'll notice that the back of these cards are either bronze, silver, or gold. Also fog, and there's a 4th type of card called War Machine, and we'll look at how they are played as we get into the game. But let's shuffle up the Sims deck. There's one small little change we need to make, and that is that there's these little tokens to say what your hand size is. The Sim starts with a hand size of 4. We start with a hand size of 6. Now remember, the air and the ruse make up 2 of those cards, so we need to draw 4 more. These go into our hand. We need to seed the Great Road, so 1 kingdom card into each of these slots. We'll look at these as we count them. So there's 3 cards drawn and then a top card turned over. There's 4 cards available in the Great Road. What about this area in the middle? This is where all the action is going to happen. There's 3 regions, horizontally, the highlands, the plateau, the lowlands. In each region, there's 2 locations, castle, wilderness, harvest field, battlefield, shrine, necropolis. We're going to be fighting over these different regions. Okay. Whoever wins in each region will select a location in that region and then gain a reward, which may be influence plus some other effects. Similarly, at the Great Road, this time we're not winning tricks. At the Great Road, we're just simply bidding with our cards over the kingdom cards here that give us some special ability. Whoever plays the highest card into the Great Road kind of wins the bid. There's kind of a bidding mechanism, if you like, but they win at the Great Road and they get first choice. But subsequent players, as they come in and also bid, get second, third, and so on, 4th choice of which kingdom card they wish to draw. All right. So this is where clashes are won and lost. Right, we've got a couple more things to just identify. This is the turn order token. Sim always goes first, so they're going to go first on the turn order track, which is up here. And this is particularly important in the solo game because when the Sim's going first, they're making decisions that we can glean information from. When the turn order's reversed, if we're going first, so we don't have that information to go on. Now, as it goes, this is kind of a nice little catch-up mechanism because whoever has the most influence is first on the order track. So if you're lagging behind, you go into 2nd spot and you can kind of have an easier time catching up. Lastly, we've got 2 decks of cards for the Sim. These are called behavior cards. There's a maneuver deck, numbered number 1, and then a resolution deck, number 2. Give these a shuffle up, and these are going to drive the Sim's behavior. All right, so these are specific to the Sim. And we've got a nice round sequence reference chart. Okay, start of year, draw up to your hand size. We've already done that, and determine player order. We've already done that. Spring. Okay, spring. We're going to be placing our heralds. These are these chunky tokens in one of these locations. It's potentially an indication of where we're going to be bidding strongest to win tricks, but if you win and pick that location as your reward, if your herald is in that location, you gain a bonus influence. So it's kind of like a little bit of tomfoolery during spring to kind of say, yeah, I'm kind of toying for this area. You can use it as a bluff. I mean, there's lots of bluffing in this game. The Sim is going to do the same to you. But if you both place your heralds in the same spot, then whoever wins is potentially stealing influence from another player as well. So not only is your influence going up, it can go down. All right, so let's place our herald. Which area am I interested in? Now this is done in order, so the Sim is going to go first, and to determine where they go, we flip a maneuver card. All right, so that's spring. You're placing your herald, and you're also placing companies. Which region do you want to boost the strength of your trick with? Your companies. Okay, so that's spring. Summertime, we then place cards from our hand, 1 in each region, and that's going to be effectively what we're bidding with. We're bidding to win that trick with. Right, so we play high numbers, we're trying to win. If we play low cards, potentially we're trying to lose. But it's not just about the numbers. Some cards have keywords that we can find useful as well. We'll come to that as we look at resolving these clashes. Right, but you're placing your cards in different regions, saying, I don't know, I'm going to go a 9 here, a 10 here, a 3 there. Remember, you get a bonus if you win where your herald is, so keep that in mind. So that's summer. Now these cards are placed face down. We can't see what our opponent's doing. In autumn, we flip them face up and we resolve these clashes one by one and then take your rewards. And then finally, during winter, we resolve the Great Road. Okay, and then end of the year, pull everything back, check for a winner, and then we go again with the next year. Right, so that's the basic flow of the game. Okay, so let's dive straight in and we'll see how this thing plays. So springtime, placing our heralds in order. So Sim's going first. They flip a maneuver card, and we have a look on here, and it says they're going to place their herald in the shrine. Okay, so we take the herald and we're going to place it in the shrine. And the shrine is down here in the lowlands. Okay, so they're making a little play to say they're favouring the shrine. If they win in the lowlands and they pick the shrine, they'll get a bonus influence. Now during spring, we also play our companies. The Sim places all of their companies every time, and they always place them where their herald is. So they're going to place 3 companies in the lowlands. Okay. Now companies go in a region, they don't go in a location. So these companies are going to add 3 strength for the Sim in the lowland clash. Okay. Remember, whoever wins the clash then gets to choose a location, shrine on Acropolis, and then take the reward for whichever they choose. And if the herald's there, they get a bonus. Right? So you could win in the lowlands, have your herald in the shrine, but choose to take the Necropolis as your reward. You don't get the bonus from your herald, but you're still winning the region. Now it's up to me. So remember, in order, I'm second. I get to place my herald, and I'm going to go for the plateau, and I think the battlefield. And the question is, do I want to place any companies? I've got some high cards. Right, the cards run, so your heirs are 10. 11 is good because it's the highest card in your deck. Potentially higher cards coming from your side of power up there. But I've got some great cards. I've got a 10, a 9, 11. I'm happy with this. I've got some nice little sneaky cards as well that can help me. So I think I'm going to go for the battlefield, and I'm not going to commit any companies. Now the reason why this is important, here's my companies. I start with 5. Okay, I've got my full complement of 5 companies. If I commit these companies to a location, at the end of the year when we clean up, I don't get those companies back. They go to a little spot down here. They're kind of lost temporarily. Now I'm down to 3 companies. And to get these companies back, I have to find ways. Okay, I have to find ways. Now as it goes, there's also an area here called the lost pile where cards go to. Every time you lose a card to the lost pile, which can happen due to a game effect, it can also happen voluntarily at the end of your turn. You can send cards from your hand to the lost pile. Whenever a card goes to the lost pile, you can pull a company back. Okay, so that's how you get your company back. So they're not gone forever, but it does cost you cards to get your companies back. And when cards go to the lost pile, they disappear from your deck. Now you may be sending cards to the lost pile because you don't want them in your deck anymore. Right? Maybe they're low value cards that you don't have a use for. But also you can lose cards involuntarily. There's keywords here like eliminate, which forces an opponent to lose a card, and as compensation they get a company back. The Sim, however, never loses their companies. They always get them back. All right, so look out for it. It's a little advantage they have for being a little bit dim. Okay, so the lesson here is companies are valuable, use them wisely. Right, that's spring. Okay, we're placing our herald, placing our companies. Now we move to summer. In the summer, we place our cards. In order, Sim goes first. Now, if you want to, you can use this marker here to say who is currently acting in order. So we'll give this to the Sim. Now, one thing I've not explained is, well, why did I choose the battlefield? I will mention this briefly. It says the reward for the battlefield. I mean, it may be I don't win this region and I don't get to use my herald or use this location ability. It may be I'll win in the plateau and decide to go for the harvest field. Who knows? Let's see how it plays out. But there's a chance I'm going to go for the battlefield and try and win this location. It says we can take 2 influence from a single player, so we can take influence from the sim. Well, that doesn't help us right now. They don't have any influence. Remember, it's a race to 20. Or claim the collaborator. This is what I was really interested in. This is called the collaborator disc, and it begins the game here at the battlefield. When you win the battlefield and take the collaborator, it goes to your player board next to your little collaborator ability, and place it with the number 3 pointing downwards. And every player board has a special collaborator ability. Mine is called Tax Collector. So if I win the collaborator and I place it here, I place it with the number 3. I've got 3 uses of this thing. So 1, 2, 3. It ticks down. It goes back to the battlefield. Right, 3 uses, which means for 3 turns during spring, it says gain 1 influence and plus 3 strength to any of your journeying and occupying cards this round. Those are the cards that I'm sending out to win at the Great Road. The additional bonus and asymmetry of each player is that we've got 4 tactics, and every player has a different set of tactics. On your reference card for your faction, it gives you a little summary of the strengths of your faction. And there's a round sequence help on the back here. On the front, like I say, the kind of a summary of what the strengths of your factions are, how its tactics and its collaborator effects work. Okay? All right. I want to win at the battlefield because I want to get that collaborator disc. If somebody else wins at the battlefield on a subsequent turn, they steal the collaborator disc from you. I want to get it in there, make use of it, and stop the sim using it. The sim has got their own collaborator ability. It's called the Furnace. And if they win the collaborator, then during spring, you get to pick 2 of these options. So one of the options is they gain an influence. The second option is they place an influence on the speaker or on the rider. And third option is that we discard 2 cards from the top of our deck. Discarding cards, remember we've got a relatively short deck. Discarding cards from your deck is a bad thing because once you get through your deck, everything's in your discard and then you have to reshuffle, create a new deck and start drawing again. This is called attrition, and every time you do that, your hand size goes down. Okay? A hand size going down is a bad thing. You've got fewer cards to choose from. Potentially, you're a weaker player. That's attrition. I'm throwing lots of stuff at you, but I just want to give you a sense of everything that this game's about. It's not just about playing cards and getting a higher number. There's lots of layers and depths to this game. Okay, so in turn order, so Sim first, we're now in summer, we're placing cards. Sim's got a hand size of 4 cards. One of those cards is their heir, so they're going to draw 3 more cards. So we draw from the top of their deck. Now what you'll notice is we're getting clues about which cards they're drawing because the backs of these cards are all different. This is a gold card, this is a war machine, this is a bronze card. This represents kind of above the table bluffing and chatter that's going on, like in a multiplayer game. It's potentially hints that another player is giving you, the sim is giving you. Maybe it's tells, right? They're giving a little bit of information away about their hand. This information is important to you. You don't have an opponent to chatter to, or bluff with, or tease, or toy with, or play poker face with, all right? But you've got the backs of their cards. And this turns the solo game into a very tight little puzzle of trying to figure out how to win these clashes. Now, one little thing to note, we've drawn a War Machine card if, and this is really the only rule to remember for the sim during summer here, is if they draw a War Machine card, set it aside. It doesn't count to their 4. So at the moment, they've still got 3. We're going to keep it face down. It doesn't matter. We know what that card is because there's only one of them as it goes. But we're going to draw again. Right, now they've got 4 cards. This is their hand. Okay. I can always see the top of their deck as well, so that's also a little bit of a clue. I know there's a silver card sitting here, and I happen to know a silver is either a 3, 4, 7, 8 or 9. Okay, so it could be middling, it could be low. a gold card is either their heir, so we're going to actually turn the heir face down now. So it's either a 10, an 11, 12, 14, or a 5. I think there's a trap card in there as well. So the cards are telling us a little bit about what they are. Now, just for the sake of the demo, I'm actually going to throw away this last gold card and switch it out for a fog. So I'll just swap the position of those, because I want to show you how fog cards work too. A fog card, I know it's going to be a strong card, but I don't know what sort of strong card. It could be a bluff, it could be something high. But that's their hand. Now what you do is you sort these cards into the different types. So 2 gold cards, you give them a shuffle up. So we know one of these is the 10, but we don't know which one. Okay. Now what you might want to do, because it's easier to shuffle more cards than fewer, and if you want to throw that one in as well, is just use the cards together to shuffle and then separate them out. Okay, so I've got a fog, put the War Machine aside again, I've got 2 golds and a bronze. Okay. It's nice and intuitive. Okay. Gold, silver, copper, as you'd expect. War Machine set aside, fog cards keep in the pile. Cool. So we know one of these is a 10, one of them is something else. They've got their 4 cards. Now they're going to place them in each of these 3 regions and one at the Great Road. Where do they place them? Well, we flip the resolution card. Okay. And there's a little reminder on the back of the card to tell you. Start of summer, flip this card, resolve it. And what this tells us is that the first fog card, we're going to use these in combination, so that's this one here. The first fog card goes in the region with number 1 in a circle, which is this one, the Highlands. Okay, so I'm going to place the first fog card in the Highlands. We'll keep it face down. Okay, so there's a fog card up here. We don't know what's on that card. This is a bit of a mystery. The gold cards are next. They happen to have 2 of them, but in order now through gold, silver and bronze, you'd be placing them in these region priorities. Whichever is the number 1, this is the region that they consider most important, then 2, then 3. So the next highest ranked card is going to go in the number 1 spot. If it was taken by a fog, we'd move to number 2. All right, make sense? Okay. So this gold card is going in the plateau. Then the next gold card, because gold cards come next, in number 2, which is the only one left. Then the next card, which happens to be bronze, would go to number 3, but that's taken by a fog card, so it goes to the Great Road instead. They're making a bid at the Great Road with their bronze card. And that's it. They've placed all their cards. In a multiplayer game, players would be doing this simultaneously, but now in order has come to us. Okay. So it's our turn to place our cards. Let's say in a multiplayer game, everyone will be placing their cards simultaneously, and there's no information being given away by the backs of the cards, only given away by certain tells. So things like, you may notice that someone always places their highest card first. Right? So if they place it in the plateau, you may go, they've got a little tell. I know that they always place the highest card first, and it happens to be the plateau. All right, or maybe you'll do a little bit of bluffing, a little bit of chatter back and forth. But also there may be tactics or kingdom cards that you've gained on previous turns, all altering something that's going on during this summer phase. Okay, for example, I have an ambush tactic. It says during the summer, choose an opponent, swap the position of 2 of their unrevealed cards. So it could be, I want the battlefield. This might be a good time to use the ambush tactic. I want to win here, but I know they've got a gold card there. It could be a 10, but it could be something better than a 10. So if I wanted to, I could play my ambush and maybe swap it with this bronze card down here. But the thing about tactics is, well, you may say, well, why don't you just do that all the time? When you use them, you flip them. So it's a one-time thing. Now you can reactivate a tactic. And again, it's faction specific. There is some asymmetry between the different factions on how they reactivate their tactics. For us, we can either pay 2 influence during springtime to reactivate. Remember, we're trying to get to 20. So do we want to pay 2? Flip this back over. Or there's 2 in this triangle here, represents questing that we've placed at our site of power. Remember our site of power up here where we know that we can earn our higher valued card? Well, some of our hand cards have a questing value, like the Countess here. It has a questing value of 2. If we place this card at our site of power, it gives us quest 2, which we can spend. This represents 2 quest. And we can spend to reactivate our ambush tactic. Right? Spending it means we move it from the site of power and stick it in the lost pile. Okay. How do we get cards like the Countess here with quest 1, or the Viceroy here with quest 3 at our site of power? How do we do that? Well, that's a reward for the wilderness. Gain an influence, then move 1 card with quest to your site of power. Right, the castle allows us to place cards at the speaker. I'll come to that in a bit. But questing here is something I'm potentially interested in, getting my site of power working. And I could ambush, and then if I place something like the Countess up in site of power by winning at the wilderness, I can then reactivate my ambush. So that's a ploy. So maybe I will use my ambush. Let's switch. These are both unrevealed cards. Let's switch them. Okay. And then obviously we flip our ambush tactic because we've used it now. Now technically this should be done after we place cards. So you place your cards and then take your summer actions, but it doesn't matter so much. I'm kind of thinking ahead. When you play solo, it doesn't matter so much because this is done in order. Okay, I'm holding the active marker so I can do summer effects. Now what do I want to place where? So I'm going to place my 9. I'm going to place my 9. Now they've placed their cards on the right. I'm going to place mine on the left just to make it easier. So I might actually place my Countess here. So I might actually place my heir up in the Highlands. And I'm not so bothered about the Necropolis, but I know they've got a gold card here and strength 3 plus the Herald. They might be looking at 13 strength here. I don't think I can win. But I do have this vile sect. There's still a chance that I can win. Viceroy I think is a waste. I've got a ruse here, which is a strength 0 card, but it has loyal and invulnerable, which means it can't be eliminated and it comes back to my hand if I wish. But I might just play Vile Sect and we'll see how this affects things as we move into autumn now. Now, do I want to make a bid at the Great Road? Playing a card to one of each of the 3 regions is mandatory. Okay, playing a card to the Great Road is optional. Now, I think he's probably going to win at the Great Road. But all I need is a card there. Winning at the Great Road just means you get first choice. So if I play there, I'm going to get second choice. I happen to know he's going to go for this one, the Eerie Idol, which happens to be really good as it goes. If you have any unclaimed myths, immediately move them to your hand. If you no longer occupy this card, immediately return your myth cards to the site of power. So Eerie Idol is really good, but I know he's going to take that. So let's just forget that for the moment. How do I know he's going to take that? I'll show you when we get to resolving the Great Road, but it's on their behaviour cards. But are any of these good? Yeah, I kind of like this one, the Great Wing. So I'm interested in this card. If there were no cards here that I really felt could help me, I might say, do you know what, I'm not going to use one of my cards here. I'm just going to save them. But I'm actually going to make a bid. It has to be a card with a number on. Okay. These are called supporter cards. You need a supporter card to support one of your kingdom cards. So I'm actually going to place the Guild of Dawn Traders down at the Great Road. Okay, and that's it. We've finished our summer. Now we move to autumn. In autumn, the first step is to place resolution tokens 1, 2, and 3. These determine the order that we resolve the 3 regions. Again, it's whoever's in bottom of the order track gets to place them. I'm behind, I'll get to place them, and I don't know what this fog card is, but there's some cards that have an effect called bolster. What bolster would do is when it's revealed, it'll then add its strength to adjacent regions. So if this had bolster on it, and we resolved it before the plateau, it would be giving a +2 to the plateau. Okay, same here. I don't think this is going to have bolster. So I think we're going to resolve the lowlands first. Then I'm going to resolve the plateau, the one that I care about most. And then we'll resolve the highlands. Right, so that's the order we're going to resolve them. Let's go then. Next step is revealing a region. So we're going to reveal region number 1 first, which is the lowlands. We'll flip this token and get ready. This is the dramatic effect. Remember, they get a +3 here in the lowlands from their companies. Let's flip. Oh, we've both played our eliminates. Oh, wow. This is dreadful. These are called agent cards with the daggers. Okay, the daggers are really thematic things, but what's important, they don't do anything in their own particularly. Although sometimes they can. Like here it says the vile sect is vulnerable to, and this shield here is a follower cards. What that means is if our opponent reveals a card with a shield, a follower card, then we are eliminated. The vile sect and something unseen are both the same. They're both vulnerable to shields, and they both have eliminate X. Eliminate X means remove any opponent card from the clash. In this instance, both cards are eliminated. Both go to the lost pile, which is down here below the Great Road. And that's bad news for us. I was hoping that I would eliminate and they'd have something else here, possibly their heir. That didn't work out. Sneaky sim. So what that means is we're now still trying to resolve the clash. And they've got 3 strength here still. So they're going to win the clash. Sim wins the clash with 3-0. What reward do they take? Now they don't look at this text here. They look at their resolution card. And it says if they win in the lowlands, they gain 2 influence and they add a new fog card face down to the top of their draw pile. If you see this cog, that means the sim. So they take their 2 influence. This is influence. Okay, remember the race to 20. So they've got their 2 influence. And then they draw a new fog card and it goes to the top of their deck. So they did have a silver card here. Now they've got a fog. I don't know what it is. Now remember I told you, if you win a clash in the region where your herald is and you choose the reward from that location, your herald gives you a +1 bonus. The same applies to the sim. If their herald is still where they initially placed it, they gain the +1 influence. Because it is possible that some resolution of an effect on a card or a tactic or anything like that could potentially be moving heralds about. But they're still there. They gain their +1 influence bonus. So they've done well. They've got 3. That clash of agents really messed us up. I really thought I was going to be pulling the rug out from under them. But no, the reverse happened. This is the epitome of the old king's crown. All right, next region. Next region is region number 2, the resolution token number 2. So let's flip it. You ready? Now we've got our herald here, so I'm hoping this is somewhere we're going to win. You ready? Let's see what happens. They've got a 2. That's good. Now, if we had tried to put our vile sect here and done an eliminate, then we're vulnerable to shields. They pulled out a supporter here, shield. That would have killed our vile sects and they would have won with a 2. Yeah, so yeah, the Sim was playing a sneaky game, but there we go. We did win. It's 9 versus 2. We will choose the battlefield. Our herald is here, so we get 1 influence. Okay, that goes to my player area, and then we can either remove 2 influence from a single player. So I could take those 2 and stick them back in the supply, or claim the collaborator. I think we're going to do what we said. Claim the collaborator. Yeah. So we'll take the collaborator disc, place it here, ready for springtime. Okay. Those cards stay there, face up revealed. They weren't eliminated or anything like that, so they're staying there. Right, next region. Region number 3 is the Highlands. You ready? So we know we've got our heir and number 10, but what did they have on this fog card? You ready? Let's see. Oh, it's an 11. They really messed us up. Okay, they've got an 11. Now we're loyal and resilient. Their 11 is resilient. A resilient card, when it's eliminated, instead of going to the lost pile, goes to that player's discard pile. Our heir also has loyal. What that means is when this card will be discarded, it instead goes back to their hand. So the heir would never go to the lost pile or discard, it's coming back. Unless some effect removes these keywords, my heir is coming back. But Rusted Hands has beaten my 10 with an 11. They win in the wilderness. There's another little thing about fog cards. There's a little section here that says plotting. You may have noticed that the resolution card has a mood on it. It has warmongering. Okay, that's their mood. There's also a mood on the maneuver card, but you just kind of ignore that one. That's kind of a hint at what it might be doing when these 2 cards synergize with each other. So if these were 2 regrouping cards, what you'll notice is it'll put its fog card in number 1, which is at the top, whereas it was prioritizing the plateau. When these moods kind of align, it's placing its fog cards where it's prioritizing regions, and they align with where it's placing its herald and all that kind of stuff. So these 2 were regrouping, was what it thought during spring, and then it switched to warmongering during summer. They didn't synergize, so it was a little bit out of alignment when it came to placing its herald and placing its fog card. When these 2 match, there's synergies between those placements. Okay, so that's a nice little design trick I hope that you'll appreciate. But anyway, this one's warmongering. This is a basic effect which always applies when a fog card is revealed. This is called an advanced effect. If this mood matches this one, which happens to say plotting, this one's warmongering, then you would also execute the advanced effect. So fog cards are doubly troublesome. The Sim is not making use of tactics. They don't have any tactics, you'll notice, like we do. And they can grab cards from the Great Road, these kingdom cards, but they won't be reading the effects and executing them. So to replace those tactics and kingdom card effects, they instead have these boosted fog card effects, which emulate them playing cards to kind of surprise you when the fog card synergizes with their resolution card. So this is when it's plotting, it was warmongering, we ignore this effect. Okay. But if it had done it, it says when revealed, the player must, if able, move any one of their face-up cards that's either occupying a kingdom card, holding the court, or at the site of power to their discard pile. So their plotting here would have pushed one of our supporter cards that's up here or supporting a kingdom card out into the discard pile. So they are messing with our game with Rusted Hands. As it goes, plotting didn't happen, but they did win the clash. So they win a clash in the Highlands. Again, we go back to their resolution card. And it says Cog takes 1 influence, so up to 4. And then they place 1 influence onto the speaker. Okay, let's have a look at that. This influence comes from the supply. They place it on the speaker up here. Now the speaker, I'll come to this in a second, this represents as if they'd chosen the castle location. When you choose the castle, you get to place one of your cards, one that has authority. As it goes, I did have an authority card. The Viceroy has authority 1 and quest 3. So if I'd won and chose the castle, I could be placing my Viceroy in the court. But as it goes, they place an influence on the speaker. And when they place influence on the speaker, it goes into the court. And now during spring, the sim gains influence equal to the influence on this card. So they're going to be gaining 1 influence now from having control of the court every spring. Now, if I want to knock this out, I'm going to have to win at the castle, place my own card here, take out this card, which removes its influence. They've lost influence in the court, and suddenly we'll be gaining that influence during spring instead. But for now, the sim has created an influence income at the court. Remember, the heir is vying for the crown. Influence is what wins them the crown. Influence at court wins them the crown. Okay, that's autumn concluded. We've done what we needed to do. I really wanted to win there. Yeah, I don't know why I left that fog card there against the 10. That was very risky indeed. Yeah, maybe when I did my switcheroo, when I did my ambush, I was more interested in winning up in the Highlands. I should have maybe done a switch there instead. But even so, I would have lost here. Yeah, it is a game. It is a game. But I think perhaps I needed some companies up here. That might have been better. But it's early days. This is the first turn, and it's a little bit exploratory. We found out a little bit more about their deck. We know they've got an 11 in there now. We know that their agent is out of play. We can use this on subsequent turns. All right. Losing my Vile Sect didn't help. That really hurt. Very painful. I feel really hurt by that. They've had a great first turn. So the sim's on 4 influence. They've got an influence in the court. I've got 1 influence, and I have the collaborator. So I've got my tax collector set up at least. Right, that's autumn completed. Now we move to winter and the Great Road. We're going to reveal our cards. Okay, now remember, I placed a 3. This isn't a clash. Okay, this is called journeying at the Great Road. So anything that says winning clashes or anything like that, you ignore. Oh, they placed their heir. So this is their heir. Actually, they placed the heir up there, and I pushed it out. So we did right to push that out at least. So they will get first choice, and we'll get second choice. We both had a card here, and that's it, really. Okay, who gets first dibs? So these cards are revealed. Now, if we look at their behavior cards, which kingdom card do they choose of these 4? We're just going to go back to these numbers again. So first choice would be a kingdom card with this kind of crystal. This is an object, okay? This is person, place, object. So they're going to try and grab an object from the Great Road. If they wouldn't, they'd go for place next, because that's number 2, and then person last. And then if there's more than 1 object, they'll look at these arrows, and it's either pointing left or right. So that would be the object leftmost, be their top priority, which is, we've got person, place, object, the Eerie Idol. So they're going to take the Eerie Idol, and they're going to occupy it with their heir. Now, I'm really happy about this. So although I seem to have come worse off, I've actually taken their heir out of the game temporarily, because they're going to use their heir, which was otherwise loyal and would go back to their hand. They're going to use their heir to occupy the Eerie Idol. Okay, and that goes up here, and you place whichever card is occupied. Let's move these out of the way. Whichever card is occupying that, and that's kind of like a guard. It's guarding this kingdom card. Is here, defended with a strength 10. Now there is a way for this to come back. When you win at the Great Road, you can instead do something called consolidate, which is where you replace the supporter with another supporter and bring that card back. All right, so that can happen. But they won't use the text on here. Okay, so instead, depending on whether they grab an object, place, or a person, they get a reward. It's on the reference for the solo rules. When they gain an object, they gain an influence. Okay, so they're going to gain another influence. That's 5. They're 5-1 up right now. But they have temporarily lost their heir. So I'm happy about that. Now, what about me? I've got a card here. So again, this just stays face up for the moment. I can choose one of these kingdom cards. I could choose to steal. That's another option. So if my supporter number 3 was higher than a supporter occupying one of their kingdom cards, I could steal it and grab it and put it in my area instead. But remember, theirs is a 10, mine's only a 3. So I'm going to take the Great Wing. I'm going to place that in my area. And again, I'm going to occupy that with my supporter card, which was the 3. Right, so I've lost my 3 temporarily, but he's supporting this Great Wing. But it's a useful effect. It says my heir gains bolster 2. Remember I talked about bolster. This is my heir. Now it's got bolster 2. It's going to give +2 strength when it's revealed to adjacent regions. And then at any phase, I can return this card, in other words, give up this kingdom card, to give my heir retreat. Retreat means I can kind of pull back from a clash. If I feel that there's a chance that my heir might be under threat in some way, I might lose it, I can retreat. It also means is when you retreat, you know, I said if you win a clash in the same location as somebody else's herald, you can steal an influence from them. So maybe the Sim did this, or I went in with them, and I think they're going to win and steal influence from me. I can retreat, and that also retreats my herald and any companies optionally if I wish, from anywhere on the map. Right? It doesn't have to be in the region that we're resolving. So retreat is a way to retreat your herald and companies and avoid them getting lost. Okay. So companies that would otherwise go to the supply, remember I need to lose the cards to get my companies back. I could just pull them back to my board, pull my herald back if I wished. Okay, so we've resolved the Great Road, we've finished winter, we now refreshed the Great Road. Got the False Throne coming out, and then Bureaucratic Bureau coming out. These cards would now go to their discard pile. So we've got Rusted Hands and Many Shapes going to the Sims discard. We've got these going to my discard, but remember, the heir is loyal. He comes back to my hand. Okay. All right, that's in the discard. We'll take our herald back. They take their company and their heralds back. Now, there's one last thing that we need to do. Remember this set aside War Machine. This card, during winter, will get placed. This is a supporter card, strength 5, and it has the keyword deploy. Now it's going to go in the region given by their herald, which is the Shrine, the Lowlands. This card now becomes a supporter for the Sim in the Lowlands. Now remember, strictly speaking, this is an in-order winter action, so we should do this in player order before we start clearing the board at the end of the year, after we've claimed the rewards of the Great Road. Okay, so winter actions in order, which includes playing cards with deploy. Okay, so what that means on a future clash, this 5 is potentially adding to whichever card they place there. It will be a one-time effect, right? So it will get resolved and then discarded like other cards. But this deployed card, like I say, is supporting them in an upcoming turn. All right. There's other effects like that. There's like pillaging cards can go on the map and travel and block a location out. You can't place your herald there or gain any rewards from there, and it's gaining influence as it's pillaging on the map, but it has to move. Okay, and the only way to knock it out is to win in that region and take out an opponent's pillaging card. Same for fortify. You can fortify. Fortify is like pillaging, but it locks down one particular location. Reinforce is another ability you'll see. It's like deploy, but instead of coming out in the next round, you can reinforce on the turn that the clash is being resolved. So you end up playing more than one card into a region. So lots of lovely effects. The kingdom cards really do alter. As you can see, I've got the Great Wing coming up. That's going to alter how we play in an upcoming round. Now, in early rounds, it's okay to be a little bit behind the Sim because, again, his order is going to stay with the Sim. We're going to get to see how they play their cards first. Remember, the air's out of action. I'm really happy about that. So we'll see how this plays out in the upcoming turns. So that's the Old King's Crown. I'm going to wrap up the video here. You've got a good overview of the game. If you want to see the rest of this game, then join me for part 2 as we play out the rest of this solo game. Thanks for watching and see you next time.